Thank you so much, Gary. And to all Rotarians here today, really congratulations. More than anything else, this is a wonderful achievement, 100 years of service to the Australian community. And just as we start, I mean, just look at the stamp here and just look at some of the words on there: humanity, inspire, assist, health, help, ethical. That word ethics, I think, is really fundamental to the whole value of Rotary. And I think it's one of these things which, in many ways, has to now be taught in schools and in universities. How do you teach ethics, for goodness sakes? How do you honesty to people? It really almost, in some ways, beggars belief. And yet, constantly we see in the corporate world these days failures of ethics, failures of behaviour, it comes down to the actual values of right and wrong. One of the brilliances of Rotary is it actually does step into that whole ideal of ethics. And indeed, it was James Davison, when he was asked by the Sydney Morning Herald on the very first day when they created Rotary as to what it stood for. And he basically came out and said that he said it effectively was to encourage to the commitment were to encourage and to foster high ethical standards in business and professions. The ideal of service is the basis of all worthy enterprises, the active interest of every Rotarian in the civic, commercial, social and moral welfare of the community. Think your way through that. So that's how it started, 1921. James Davison asked by the Sydney Morning Herald about what Rotary stood for. And those values are as true today as they were then. In other words, one of the problems in our community, I believe, is every time there's a problem, we say, oh, the government should fix the problem. Whereas we should fix the problems often ourselves. Even if you go to the whole value of Rotary, and what happens when a Rotary club meets and you've got people from different business sides, they are affecting each other's behaviour by the way in which their moral outcomes occur. If that encourages honesty in our community, the fact that right from wrong, the fact that a handshake actually means something when two people make a deal together, and it doesn't need a highly, legalistic contract to make certain that people stick to what they have actually committed to in the first place. They're what the values are. That's what ethics are these days. And it really seems to me that the embodiment of organisations such as Rotary is the embodiment of that trust and the value of the ethics in our community that somehow seems to be broken down when we want to go and take lawsuits against people to try and extract commercial sort of, if you like, ends and means. And so I really think again today that it is a situation where there are gaps in our society. Organisations such as Rotary, the ingenuity of the people who created it in the very first place, the ingenuity of the people who are there leading it today, that's where those gaps are filled. But how do you actually then encourage future generations to come in? Rotary was always a brilliant achievement to bring younger people in, to allow them to be imbued with the values of Rotary that go all the way back to 1921, that are really encapsulated, I think, in the stamp that's come out today. And it's also about the fact that you go to those moral failings of some of our biggest institutions. Really, at the end of the day, it comes down to leadership. It comes down to what the values of those people are about doing the right thing by the community. In other words, try to service others before you service yourself. We've had a Royal Commission into the financial services industry over the past few years where there were moral failings of our biggest institutions, the ones that we look to lead our community. And yet, clearly, they put profit ahead of their customers, ahead of the community. If you sit there and think, say, for example, if there are some 6 million volunteers in Australia, their economic output is said to be some $270 billion. In other words, that's the value they provide to our economy on an annual basis. But if you ask a country fire authority, firefighter in Victoria, a rural fire services firefighter in New South Wales, when there's a bushfire on, are you actually trying to add up the value that you're providing to the community at that stage? They would tell you, no, we're trying to put out the fire. This is it. This is about the difference between serving the community and solving the problems as compared with trying to put a value on everything we do. And this is what Rotary, I think, really embodies more to me than anything else. It's the fact that you will actually go out and create answers to problems that society has without putting your hand out and ask for something in return. And that's where the idea of ethics comes from. It is about trying to make certain that the community comes first, that the community advances. Now, we live in a wonderfully diverse community. We live in a wonderfully prosperous community, a community that can solve problems, a community that can help, say, for example, right now, I was talking to Gary a little earlier on, try and find water on the moon to allow the next mission to Mars. And Australians are right involved in the middle of all of that. We're ingenious in what we can actually create in the help of actually solve the problems of coronavirus. We have the skills and the talent. But what we've also got to remember are the values, the very core fundamental values in our children, in our new migrants that come in the future values of our politicians, that we all understand that we are here for the greater good and not just simply to line our own pockets. It is about ethics, it's about values, and it's about, frankly, putting your head on the pillow at night and making certain that you are comfortable with the way that you have lived, that you are not uncomfortable about the way and the actions that you have actually gone through during that day, that week, or that year. And this is the reason why I congratulate you all, because you have done something which is beyond business. It actually helps your business. I recognise that. But it's about trying to, as a community, recognise the values that make us Australians, that make us stronger, that make us a better place to live. And frankly, to make us feel good about ourselves, helping others. It's a pretty simple concept, but it's one that's actually stood the test of time for the past 100 years. It's great to be with you today. And can I commend you to the coin, to the $1.10 on the stamp? I thought that was kind of interesting. It would have been a penny back in 100 years ago. So we have seen a little inflation since that time. Have a great morning. Thank you.